The story begins with Yuusho witnessing an ongoing robbery taking place, and while the thief's focus is towards the receptionist, Yuusho seizes the opportunity and hits the thief from behind. Before the thief could even process what happened, the receptionist also threw a ladle at his face, which knocked that thief out cold. All of a sudden, the three of them get teleported somewhere, and Yuusho finds himself standing in a pretty strange place. Before long, an old man walks up to him and apologizes, saying that he has cast a spell on them three, and it's as good as if he has put an end to them. Shocked, Yuusho wonders if he is who he thinks he is, to which the old man agrees, letting Yuusho know that he is a demigod and the place they are in is called the Boundary Realm. The demigod wanted to bring divine punishment to the world he oversaw, but accidentally got pulled into their world. This prompts Yuusho to ask what will happen to him now, and he is told that he is going to be reincarnated into a fantasy world filled with magic and elven huzz. Moreover, the demigod wishes to make up for his mistake by offering a special innate skill to Yuusho. Lastly, he once again asks about the special ability Yuusho wants, and to his surprise, all Yuusho requests is a talent where effort gets rewarded proportionally. His reasoning behind this request is that if his level goes up, there's a possibility that his stats won't. Upon hearing that, the demigod decides to give him a power that requires 3 times the usual amount of experience to level up. This will allow Yuusho to increase the stats of all his abilities once he levels up, which is not possible for an average person. Additionally, Yuusho is also given the clairvoyance ability, which will let him appraise people and objects. Once everything is settled, Yuusho asks what will happen to the demigod from now on, to which he replies by saying that his existence will come to an end when Yuusho gets reincarnated. With that, the demigod's time runs out, and Yuusho is ultimately born into this new world as Mars Bryant. A year has passed since that day, and Mars' family consists of his father, Zeke, his mother, Maria, and his older brother, Ike. After some time, Mars notices that his magical powers increased a little and decides to try using magic for the first time. But even when he yells thunder after raising his hand, nothing happens, except for making him look like a complete fool. One day, Mars ends up asking his parents about how one can use magic, and when Maria questions why he wants to know that, Mars lets her know that if he has a talent, he wishes to work hard and learn it early. For the time being, she decides to teach him around the same time they taught Ike. Curious, Mars asks if he can even heal injuries and mentions that he dreams of healing Mom and Dad's injuries. Both of them are shocked after hearing this, and Maria suggests checking if Mars can use holy magic. The following day, Zeke decides to teach Mars some magic, but before starting, he mentions that holy magic is a rare type of magic, and if somehow Mars is able to use it, it would be best if he doesn't tell anyone. Once he agrees, Zeke asks the boys to focus their awareness just below their belly button, as this is where magic power gathers. After that, they are told to picture that magic circulating through their bodies. Once they manage to achieve that much, Zeke uses a crystal to appraise their stats. The next day, he brings them a grimoire, and after learning its content, Mars tries using wind magic for the first time and succeeds in doing so. Everyone praises him for doing a good job, and after a few days, Ike had also become able to use fire magic. It's been a year since that day, and after practicing for quite some time, Mars has become talented in wind magic, while Ike has been leveling up his fire magic as well. Their practice session gets interrupted when Zeke and Maria return from shopping, bringing along a surprise they promised to show them later. After settling down, Zeke pulls out a fire spirit sword, which has the ability to increase its user's magic, and he gives it to Ike. Not only that, but he also bought a beginner-class holy magic grimoire for Mars, which he really appreciated. From that point on, Mars spent the whole time trying to practice healing magic, and although he couldn't use it yesterday, Mars decided to give it a shot the next morning. This time, he decides to put all his mind into this, and finally manages to use healing magic for the first time. Excited, Mars lets Ike know that he can use healing magic now, and asks the reason why he isn't using the sword. Ike tells him that Zeke advised him to focus on the basics for now, and unexpectedly, the two of them witness their parents returning home badly injured. Worried, they both run up to their parents and get told that a monster in the dungeon got them good. Just by a quick look, Mars realizes that Zeke's injuries are deeper than Maria, and without wasting a second, he prepares himself to use the healing magic. Luckily, he manages to pull it off and heals both his parents without a trace of injury. With a smile on his face, Mars asks if they are still hurt, to which Zeke refuses, and Maria gives him a big hug, praising and thanking her son. Later that night, Zeke decides to hold a family meeting and informs the boys that both he and Maria work as adventurers and explore dungeons to exterminate monsters. A few days ago, they were ordered by Count Carmel to slay a monster inside the dungeon, which is why they will be diving deeper into the dungeon. But after seeing Mars using healing magic, he got the idea of letting the boys help them with this work. However, he will still take the final decision 1 year later, after the two of them have grown up a little more. Both of them instantly agree, and with that problem aside, Zeke mentions that thanks to his last ride to Pound Town with their mother, they will be getting a little sibling soon. Ultimately, a year has passed, and currently, both brothers are sparring with each other to improve their swordsmanship. A lot happened in this past year, as not only was Ike able to use the magic sword, but their little sister, Rena, was also born. Now it's time for another family meeting, and this time, Zeke suggests taking Ike outside the town to thin out some monsters while Mars can support them using his sacred magic. Maria starts by saying that although Mars will be able to heal their wounds and make the battle stable, he is still too young for any of this. She also believes that it's pretty early for Ike as well and wishes she could go, but with Rena, it's very hard for her. Mars really wants to go with Ike and Zeke, but he also understands what Maria is saying. Upon hearing this, Maria finally gives in and allows him to accompany his father. However, she makes sure to advise him not to go near magic-rich spots and be fully prepared for anything since he can't use equipment. Lastly, Maria asks them to bring potions along and lets Zeke know that she will be counting on him. With everything set, the boys are ready to go, and their first stop is the guild. There, Mars notices some younglings apart from themselves, and after analyzing their abilities, he comes to realize that the two of them might be overpowered. Nevertheless, Zeke manages to secure a monster-slaying quest, and the three of them finally step outside the town. It doesn't take them long to spot some goblins nearby, and for now, Zeke decides to slay all of them and leave the last one for Ike. He believes that Ike's fire will be more than enough to defeat them, advising Ike to watch and learn. With that being said, Zeke fires stone bullets at the goblins, exterminating all the goblins apart from one. Once his job is done, Ike steps up and uses a fire spell to burn the remaining goblin to ashes. Zeke then teaches the boys about the importance of the magic stones they get from defeating monsters, which can be sold to the guild. After that, he decides to move further, but gets interrupted by Mars, who asks to defeat the next goblin they come across. But when Mars says that he can't defeat a monster with wind, Mars lets him know that he can use the wind cutter as well. Zeke's jaw hits the floor upon hearing this and decides to let Mars use it next time. After coming across some more goblins, Zeke gives Mars the green light to use his wind cutter spell and asks Ike to defeat the last one using his sword. Just as the goblins come close enough, Mars fires his wind cutter spell, cutting those goblins with more precision than Gordon Ramsay's knife work. The remaining goblins are dealt with by Zeke, while Ike takes out the last one. Once the magic stones are collected, Zeke praises the boys and decides to head home after slaying a few more goblins. As the two of them continue slaying goblins left and right, Ike eventually notices that he has leveled up and gets congratulated by both Zeke and Mars. Not long after, the three of them return home, and hoping to level up as well, Mars forces the other two to go on another family adventure. This time, they come across a whole tribe of goblins, and without any hesitation, Mars rains down the wind cutter spell, eliminating each and every single one of them. Thanks to that, he manages to level up as well, and Zeke figures that it must be hard for Mars to level up, adding the fact that there were way too many goblins in the area. Since this isn't normal, he decides to report it to the guild. Later at home, Zeke informs everyone that the quantity of monsters appearing in Almeria has increased, and due to a shortage of manpower, the guild has issued a named quest. Because this is going to be a dangerous investigation, he wishes to discuss it before taking the boys along. Ike instantly agrees to go, letting Zeke know that he can handle a goblin easily. While Maria doesn't mind them fighting goblins, she is worried about the appearance of stronger monsters. Shockingly, Mars decides not to go as he's not strong enough and asks Zeke to postpone the quest for now. He agrees with Mars as well and decides to put the named quest on hold and continue taking down normal monsters like usual. The next day, they are faced with a large number of kobolds, and knowing the best way to deal with them, Zeke decides to run and split the kobolds so they can defeat them individually. The two brothers also follow in their father's footsteps and easily defeat all the kobolds. It has now been a month, and while Ike has reached level 9, Mars is currently on level 5. Back at home, Mars figures that it's time for him to talk about the Haven's Eye, and during dinner, he informs his parents that he can use appraisal skill. Shocked, Zeke asks if he can see everyone's status, to which Mars agrees, saying that he can even see the status of objects. Everyone starts to celebrate upon hearing about this, but their celebration is cut short by Mars, who decides to talk about the investigation in Almeria. Mars starts off by discussing the increasing number of goblins and suggests investigating it. Maria seems to like this idea, and eventually, Zeke also agrees with it, deciding to finally take the boys on the named quest. The next morning, the three of them are off to complete their first named quest, and along the way, Mars questions about places present on the west side, to which Zeke replies by saying that there lies an abandoned mine long before even he was born. Eventually, they arrive at a place that has been taken over by the goblins, and according to the discussed plan, Ike starts the raid by casting a fire spell in the center of where the goblins are present. When they start rushing towards him, Mars uses this opportunity to hit them with the Wind Cutter spell, and with Zeke assisting them, they finally eliminate all the goblins present. Once they have finished collecting all the magic stones, the three of them head towards an abandoned building, and before long, the door opens, revealing a hobgoblin taller than Shaq himself. Zeke advises his sons to first deal with the goblins accompanying it so they can freely take on the hobgoblin. After Mars cuts through all the smaller goblins, Ike charges the hobgoblin, and simultaneously, Mars hits it with his Wind Cutter to deal some damage. But when Ike tries attacking it with his sword, the hobgoblin easily deflects the strike. They are then advised by Zeke to aim for its eyes, and just like that, Mars cuts one of its eyes, allowing Ike to land a clean strike, ultimately putting an end to the hobgoblin. After they collect the magic stone, Zeke notices that there's a labyrinth inside the goblins, and if goblins are overflowing from that place, then it could be a major problem. For now, he decides to investigate it a bit and report it to the guild if they find goblins inside. With that being said, the three of them enter the building and after some time, come across 3 goblin mages. Knowing that their magic is troublesome, he advises the brothers to take them out before they can cast their spells. Each targets one of the goblin mages and swiftly takes them down. After that, they find a treasure chest, but before opening it, Zeke asks Mars to use the appraise skill since this could be a trap as well. Thanks to this skill, Mars finds out that it's genuine and informs Zeke that its award improves with a higher luck stat. Since that's the deal, Zeke asks Mars to open it, and there, he finds a fire bracelet which Ike can use to enhance his fire even more. Later that day, the three of them pay a visit to the guild, hoping to have a conversation with the guild master. Sometime later, the guild master invites Zeke inside his room and questions him about the boys he brought along. He lets him know that these 2 are his sons, and the boys make sure to introduce themselves. The guild master also presents himself as Ralph and gets told by Zeke about the labyrinth they found in the abandoned village. He further mentions how its presence could become a serious problem. Upon hearing this, Ralph gets shocked and decides to consult Count Carmel. Lastly, Zeke requests to register his sons as adventurers as they accompanied him on the investigation, and without them, he couldn't have achieved this much. At first, Ralph starts to hesitate a bit, but Zeke reassures him that Ike knows swordsmanship, while Mars can use wind magic. Furthermore, when the boys showcase their magic talent to him, Ralph instantly agrees to approve their adventurer registration. As days passed, Mars started losing against Ike in a swordsmanship battle, and during one of those battles, they were interrupted by Zeke, who decided to split the reward from the other day since it was the 3 of them who achieved this. But to his surprise, Ike was happy enough with his fire bracelet, while Mars only wanted to learn earth magic from Zeke. Hearing this, both Maria and Mars started laughing, agreeing to teach him earth magic when he gets the chance. After that, he hands them their adventurer cards, letting them know that they are currently ranked E with that aside. Zeke talks about the new request they have received from the guild, and who wants them to team up with other adventurers to manage the Labyrinth, promising the rank of Baron as a reward. Upon getting an agreement from the three of them, Mars decides to accept the request. It has now been 6 months since that day, and their family has started working with other adventurers. After a hard day at work, Zeke says his goodbyes to the D-ranked adventure party called Blue Fang, with whom they have been working. Once they return to their new Baron-ranked house, Zeke lets everyone know about their plan of delving deeper into the Labyrinth, asking them to prepare themselves, to which everyone agrees. The following day, the whole family steps inside the Labyrinth and comes across an army of goblins. The boys take charge, and while Ike cuts through all the goblins present at the front, Mars uses his magic to protect Ike from the upcoming magic. After that, he uses a wind cutter to cut through the mages, leaving him face to face with the hobgoblin. Fortunately, he manages to dodge the initial strike, and after jumping in the air, he targets its eyes, giving Ike a clean shot at the goblin's receding hairline. Subsequently, they are presented with another treasure chest, and this time, Ike gets himself a new flame lance. As the four of them progress further, they eventually find a gate that leads them to the safe zone, where they decide to have a family picnic together. Following that, they move to the second floor and are once again faced by multiple goblins, which, as always, are an easy target for them. Ultimately, they come across a giant gate, and upon entering the room, they find an army of hobgoblins accompanied by an even bigger goblin. That giant goblin turns out to be a goblin general whose stats are off the charts. However, the couple isn't panicking at all and figures that the Goblin King must be in the deepest part. Moreover, they tell the boys to watch carefully as this is their first time seeing how the two of them fight. To start things off, the hobgoblins start charging the two of them, and both Maria and Zeke construct fortresses around themselves. Seeing that the hobgoblins are unable to break it, the general has to step in and try breaking it himself. But the couple uses this opportunity to rain down several attacks on the goblins, defeating everyone, including the general, in one move. Back in the labyrinth city of Granzem, a blonde baddie named ClariS is playing with her cat when, unexpectedly, someone comes running, telling her that something terrible has happened. He takes her to the hospital, where several injured people are present, and this situation allows her to showcase her healing abilities. In the meantime, Mars and the others arrive in the Goblin General spawn room, where these monsters keep respawning even if they wipe them out. There, Maria and Zeke ask the boys to keep training until they get strong enough to defeat them all by themselves. With that being said, their training begins, and after failing a couple of times, they finally start to defeat the generals. Now, another year has passed, and since they managed to beat all the Goblin Generals, Zeke suggests moving on. After that, they walk up to the third floor and come across a room that could most likely be the boss's room. Without hesitation, the four of them open the room and find two goblin lords guarding the Goblin King sitting between them. Shockingly, the boys ask their parents to leave the goblin lords to them, and without breaking a sweat, they easily defeat them. Following that, they move towards the Goblin King, who manages to block their strike flawlessly. As the fight continues, the Goblin King swings his sword at Mars, which he blocks, giving Ike a chance to throw his lance and pierce it through the Goblin King's body. Shockingly, the Goblin King remains unaffected and counterattacks, almost getting Ike, but luckily he manages to escape. While Mars is distracted, the Goblin King charges him, but he also barely manages to dodge the strike. He then begins fighting the boss all on his own, and after exchanging a few blows, Mars gets sent flying towards a pillar by the goblin boss. However, Mars uses this to his advantage and rebounds off the pillar. The Goblin King also dashes forward, ready to strike, but just in the nick of time, Mars dodges the attack and cuts one of its legs. Frustrated, the goblin boss moves back and summons a bunch of goblin lords, but Mars remains unbothered and uses a new skill he learned named Tornado. After finishing up those goblin lords, Mars approaches the one-legged vegetable pretending to be a boss, and using his dagger beheads it. This feat gives him the title of Wind King and Goblin Slayer, along with a flame phantom beast robe. Both Maria and Zeke congratulate them for clearing the dungeon all by themselves, and get even more surprised upon finding out about Mar's new titles. Meanwhile, at Granzem, ClariS's parents ask if she's heading out again, to which she agrees and leaves the house to heal the injured people. After she's done with the job, ClariS is on her way back and hears people talking about the appearance of kobolds in the area. Nevertheless, she dismisses it and walks into a bathhouse to refresh her mid-tier body. While enjoying her bath, ClariS begins thinking about the increasing number of monsters and hopes that nothing serious happens. After she's done and is on her way home, ClariS notices a kitty and begins petting it without a care in the world. The next day, an adventurer lets ClariS know that inside a dungeon labyrinth, the number of monsters is fixed. But when the number of monsters keeps increasing until they can no longer be contained, it is called a labyrinth overflow. He then asks if she understands, to which ClariS agrees and gets told by her father that it happens very rarely. Nevertheless, he then asks her to enjoy the treat he ordered for her. Meanwhile, the knights of the town are gathered to prevent the labyrinth overflow, and their leader motivates them to give it their all. However, his little pep talk gets interrupted by loud banging on the main city gate, which eventually gets broken, followed by the appearance of several goblins. They all end up ganging up on the leader, and even while he's getting his insides torn apart, he orders his men not to give up and stop them with everything they got. The watchman present on the tower notices this and rings the bell to alarm all the citizens. Upon hearing this, everyone starts running, and those adventurers who also hear about this tell her to get home quickly. Just then, she hears someone asking for help to treat injured adventurers, and without wasting any time, she runs in that direction. While the adventurers fight bravely to stop the goblins, she continues healing all the wounded people. Before long, he notices her efforts and encourages the other adventurers to keep fighting, as even that little is doing her best. Simultaneously, some of the citizens try evacuating the premises but get attacked by goblins instead. This prompts them to ask for help, but that adventurer lets them know that they have to handle it themselves since his team is at their limit as well. Meanwhile, ClariS is still busy healing as many people as she can, and before long her parents appear, looking visibly injured. But just as she is about to heal them, her father stops her, saying that for everyone else's sake, she should heal the adventurers first. Suddenly, she starts getting requests from a number of people who start fighting over who will get healed first. Ultimately, they all stop when a noble appears, asking her to heal the little bruise he got. However, ClariS stands her ground and decides to heal this minor scratch later, as she wishes to prioritize treating the adventurers. Upon hearing this, the nobles slap her in the face, shocking everyone present nearby. He then begins yelling at ClariS and pulls out his sword to put an end to her. But just as he is about to strike her down, ClariS's father appears and takes the hit. Infuriated, the noble asks if he's also going to stand in his way, and gets asked by ClariS's father to forgive his daughter. In a state of panic, ClariS tries to heal her father's injuries, but fails to do so as she has already run out of mana. In the meantime, that nobleman raises his sword to eliminate both ClariS and her father. But before he gets the chance to do so, Mars comes running and lands a flawless strike on his god-awful face. After that, he comes up to ClariS's father and uses heal to treat her injuries. With that out of the way, Mars pulls out his sword to deal with the goblins causing havoc in town. Everyone gets shocked seeing Mars fold those goblins without breaking a sweat, including ClariS, who can't believe that he defeated the goblins all on his own. Once he's done, everyone starts praising him, and before long, Count Beetle appears. Seeing this, ClariS grabs Mars's hand, suggesting they leave because of what he did to the noble. When Count Beetle asks about the situation, the noble complains that he was attacked by an unknown assailant and asks him to prioritize his treatment. However, Count Beetle mentions that pigs like him can wait, and when the noble tries arguing with the Count, he gets shut down by him. Elsewhere, Mars thanks ClariS's parents and apologizes for overstepping earlier. ClariS realizes that he's the same age as her, and after thanking him for the help, she lets him know that she saved her in Japanese. Upon hearing this, Mars remembers the girl he saved from the thief, and figures that she got reincarnated as well. With that, they embrace each other and introduce themselves by mentioning both their old and new names. But after seeing the confused look on ClariS's parents, Mars gets away from her, telling them that he was trying to communicate with her using the new language he had learned. Following that, they all return to ClariS's house, where he informs them that he is from the Balkus kingdom. Knowing that Granzem City is pretty far away from where he lives, ClariS's father questions how Mars got here. Mars replies by saying that he was exploring a dungeon with his brother and came across a wall that was infused with magic. As soon as Mars tried touching it, the wall began to suck his hand inside, leaving him no other choice but to go further in. But before leaving, he gave Ike a crystal that let them know each other's location and asked him to inform Zeke about it. Soon after, he was completely drawn inside the wall and found himself near this city. Upon hearing this, ClariS's father tells Mars that the Zarkam and Balkus kingdoms are at war right now and invites him to stay at their house for the time being. Her mother also reassures Mars that they will offer him the best hospitality possible, to which he agrees. Once that's decided, ClariS requests to speak with Mars, and when her father agrees, she grabs him and takes Mars to her room. But instead of testing his pull-out game, Mars is forced to tell her the story of his reincarnation, along with the fact that the thief from before is also in this world. Their conversation gets interrupted when they hear the knights running in the streets, making them realize that the goblins must have appeared again. Scared, ClariS grabs his hand, and he calms her down by promising to help. Puzzled, she reminds him that they are people from his enemy country, but Mars couldn't care less about that, as according to them, people are people, and this time he wishes to protect them to the very end. Following that, he opens the door and finds ClariS's parents eavesdropping on them. Mars lets them know that he will be joining the knights, and when her father mentions that he might not be able to help if his identity gets revealed, Mars tells him that he's prepared for that. With that being said, Mars doesn't waste any time and dashes towards the battle zone. Before long, he finds Count Beetle and asks to fight alongside him. The fatty noble recognizes Mars as the person who punched him, asking if he stole his sword as well. However, Count Beetle suggests dealing with the thief later and asks Mars to get out of the way. Just then, one of the knights appears, informing the Count that he's the person who wiped out all the goblins, and upon hearing that, the Count Beetle asks if he can count on him, to which Mars agrees. Elsewhere, almost every knight under the captain's command has lost their lives, and he is the only one remaining in front of a whole goblin army. Although his legs are shaking more than an exotic dancer on rent day, the captain chooses to stand tall and try to buy some time. Ultimately, a hobgoblin walks forward, ready to crush the captain, when suddenly, Mars appears and after slashing the hobgoblin, deals with all the remaining goblins. Once he's done, Mars reassures the captain that they have been wiped out, prompting the knights to take a sigh of relief and thank Mars for his efforts. After returning to the town, Count Beetle praises Mars and suggests discussing his reward and future plans. With that being said, he pays a visit to the town's guild, where Mars is greeted by the guild master and asked if there's a way to stop the Labyrinth overflow. The guildmaster mentions that clearing the labyrinth should be enough to stop it, but that could take some time since they are at war and lack manpower. This prompts Mars to clear the labyrinth himself, shocking both the guildmaster and Count Beetle, who warn him that entering alone is extremely dangerous. Just then, ClariS makes an entrance, telling the guildmaster that she will be going to accompany him. The guildmaster mentions that it's too dangerous for her even if she can use holy magic, to which ClariS replies by saying that the labyrinth overflow happening is even more dangerous, and if she goes with him, their chances of clearing the labyrinth increase. This results in Mars asking the guild leader to let her accompany him, and ultimately, Count Beetle agrees as well, saying that they will provide as much support as possible and asks if there is something Mars wants for a reward. Mars agrees, telling him that he wants them to guarantee the safety of Mars, ClariS's family. After that, he explained everything about the conflict he had with the noble named Dames, and upon hearing this, Count Beetle personally guaranteed the safety of ClariS's family. Once they leave, the guild master praises them for being incredible, and the Count agrees with him, later asking the guild leader to register Mars as an adventurer. Surprisingly, ClariS's parents agreed to her going inside the labyrinth without hesitation. And before going to bed, Mars starts getting worried about this town and ClariS. Once he's gone, and remembering God's request to keep her safe, he decides to make her stronger. The following day, the two of them finally enter the labyrinth for the first time. But before going in any deeper, he lets ClariS know that she will be training to get stronger. To start things off, he decides to check her stats and finds out that she has a talent for barrier magic. But since Mars doesn't know how to use it, he can't assist her in learning its abilities. Nevertheless, he decides to start with the basics and informs ClariS that he's more of a mage who specializes in wing magic instead of a swordsman, telling her that he can also use holy magic. After that, he asks ClariS about the way for someone to grow the fastest, and she figures that it must be by working harder than others. While that answer is also correct, the other answer is to engage in real combat. For that, he tells ClariS to defeat a goblin, but having only ever cut the hearts of her simps, ClariS isn't sure she can even handle even a single goblin. Just as the fight commences, the goblin charges ClariS and easily overwhelms her, prompting Mars to defeat it in her stead. Seeing her whole body shake due to fear, he decides to change the plan and clear the labyrinth on his own. However, ClariS refuses, saying that she couldn't do anything when that noble cut down her father, which is why she wants to become strong enough to not only protect herself, but also her family. With that being said, she comes face to face with another goblin, and this time she doesn't hesitate but swings her sword with all her might, managing to land a clean hit on the goblin. Once that's done, Mars compliments her for doing a good job, but to his shock, she falls to the ground. Concerned, he asks if something is wrong, but gets told by ClariS that the tension she had just melted away. As days progressed, ClariS grew steadily and trained to the point where she couldn't grip her sword anymore. Thanks to the spoils from battles, her equipment increased, and she kept growing stronger. One day, the two of them are on their way home, talking about how the people from outside town are coming to the clinic. Just then, Mars notices something strange and looks in a particular direction. But when ClariS asks if something happened, he dismisses it, knowing full well that someone was watching him. Anyway, ClariS suggests going home and charging themselves with some meat, and as they walk away, the person keeping watch remains hidden. Ultimately, ClariS gets strong enough to tackle a goblin general on her own, and since it's her first time fighting one, she decides to maintain distance and use her bow to shoot arrows at its eyes. Once the goblin has lost its vision, she starts attacking different body parts to wear it down and finishes it off with an arrow to the head. After defeating her first goblin general, ClariS does a celebratory emote she learned from Fortnite and gets congratulated by Mars. Moreover, she makes sure to thank him for making her stronger, and after that, Mars suggests taking a break before heading deeper. The two of them enjoy eating homemade sandwiches, while all Mars can think of is how all this will come to an end if they succeed in the labyrinth tomorrow. The next day, Count Beetle, along with some knights, comes to greet Mars at the labyrinth gate, and there he feels someone gazing at him again. This time, Mars asks Count Beetle if he feels someone watching them, but the Count reassures Mars that he has already taken measures, asking him to focus on the labyrinth. His answer makes Mars figure that something is definitely going on, but for now, he decides to put his mind on the labyrinth mission. Inside, the knights assist Mars by dealing with the smaller goblins, and after they have reached a certain point, Mars and ClariS break away from the group to go deeper into the labyrinth. After managing to defeat all the goblin generals, they finally arrive at the boss's room, where, as expected, a goblin king is present. Just by a look at it, ClariS realizes that this is nothing like the goblins they've faced so far, but using a single tornado spell, Mars defeats the goblin king and decides to head back. Elsewhere, Dames is present inside his house, laughing at his perfect plan and letting Count Beetle know that he's finished. Apparently, Dames used his personal wealth to hire 200 mercenaries and plans on taking over the Count's knights. But after daydreaming for a while, Dames decides to check the progress real quick, only to witness Count Beetle standing on his doorstep, giving him the deadliest glare known to men. Meanwhile, Mars and ClariS also return from the labyrinth, and when the knight waiting outside asks them about their mission, Mars lets him know that it was a success. He is amazed by this and decides to take the two of them to the Count's manor. There, Mars finds out that Dames has already been restrained by the knights and questions Count Beetle about it. He lets Mars know that while they were conquering the Labyrinth, Dames tried staging a coup. He had hired a large number of mercenaries who were hoarding weapons and potions for some time, but thankfully, they managed to stop it, and the mastermind behind the coup was none other than Dames himself. As a punishment, Count Beetle announces that Dames's family will be stripped of their title and maids. Once he's taken care of, Count Beetle sits on his knees and praises the two of them for doing a wonderful job, letting them know that they are heroes of the nation. Moreover, to honor this achievement, ClariS's father gets appointed as a baron, and when Count Beetle asks for his answer about the topic they discussed earlier, ClariS's father asks for some time to discuss it with his family. After that, Count Beetle allows Mars to stay at his manor for tonight and treats him with some pretty delicious meals. During dinner time, one of the knights apologizes for keeping an eye on him, and all of a sudden, Count Beetle addresses him as Mars from the Balkus Kingdom. Upon hearing this, the floor drops out from under him, and Mars starts to wonder if he has been found out. However, Count Beetle reassures him that they mean no harm, adding the fact that they found out about his identity while trying to register him as an adventurer. He also knows that Mars has no way to return because of the teleportation and decides to arrange for his return. While the preparation could take a week, Count Beetle decides to send a letter to inform his family of his safety for now. After some days, it is now time for Mars to leave, and everyone from Count Beetle to ClariS's father thanks him for his efforts. With that, he asks ClariS to take care, letting her know that he enjoyed their time together. But shockingly, ClariS turns to her parents and thanks them for everything until now, telling them that she is going. Seeing the confused look on Mars's face, Count Beetle informs Mars that ClariS has decided to go with him, which causes him to tear up a little. With that being said, the two of them eventually leave, and their journey together went smoothly until they arrived at that particular town. There, the two of them were present inside a restaurant, discussing how much fun these past days have been. Suddenly, their conversation gets interrupted by a man who begins asking for help to find his escaped slave who has fled towards the Forbidden Forest. When an adventurer asks for the slave's characteristics, the man informs him that it's an elven girl, adding the fact that he will pay 100 gold coins for whoever takes the quest. The adventurer finds this reward to be quite generous, but he is also aware of how dangerous the Forbidden Forest is. While money is important to him, his life is more precious, so he advises that man to give up on that slave. Simultaneously, ClariS and Mars leave the restaurant and continue their journey towards home. Along the way, ClariS asks if Mars has ever seen an elf, but he refuses and gets told by ClariS that she hasn't seen one either. She then asks if they are going to pass near the forest, and after looking at the map, Mars agrees. Just then, ClariS yells at Mars to look ahead, and he witnesses an elven girl crossing the road in a hurry. Not only that, but a giant snake seems to be following her, and since it's heading towards their carriage, Mars decides to stop the snake, asking ClariS to take care of the girl. With that being said, he jumps and tries to hit the snake with the wind cutter spell. But no matter how many times he hit the snake, it remained unharmed. Puzzled, Mars takes a look at its stats and finds out that the snake is stronger than the Goblin King they fought earlier. Unexpectedly, ClariS hits the snake with an arrow, telling Mars to be careful as it spits poison from its mouth. He then asks ClariS to buy him some time, to which she agrees and begins making the snake follow her instead. Mars takes this opportunity to gather his magic and simultaneously use both the fire and wind spells. The snake notices the change in magic energy and leaves ClariS to charge Mars instead. However, he remains still, trying to gather as much power as possible, and just when the snake is about to devour him, ClariS somehow manages to use barrier magic and protects Mars from the initial strike. This gives him the chance to hit that snake with a new spell named Firestorm, ultimately burning it to ashes. He then asks ClariS about the elven girl, to which she replies by saying that she is present in the carriage. The two of them then go up to her, asking if she's all right, and the elven girl questions if they have come to take her back to the merchant. ClariS assures the elven girl that they won't hand her over to the merchant, and upon hearing that, the girl runs up to ClariS and gives her a hug. ClariS then asks for her name, and she introduces herself as Misha, telling them that the merchant promised to take her back to her mother, but it was a lie and they kidnapped her instead. This prompts the two of them to look for her mother together, resulting in Misha tearing up and thanking them for saving her. After traveling for some time, they decide to take a quick break and wash their bodies. For that, Mars constructs a giant tub, and after filling it with water, he heats it using fire magic. Once the makeshift bath is complete, the ladies remove their clothes and enjoy bathing. During their conversation, Misha discovers that the two of them are of the same age, to which ClariS agrees, telling her to feel free to talk. Knowing that the two of them are of the same age, Misha gets amazed and starts staring at those gravity-bending curvatures. Nevertheless, ClariS then asks Misha about her mother and gets informed that her mother is a B-ranked adventurer who is pretty strong and beautiful. Not only that, but she seems to have giant horns at the front, as ClariS does. Following that, ClariS gives Misha some of her clothes to wear, and with that, they decide to set out before nightfall. Later that night, Mars ends up scouting a city that Beetle told them to avoid, and just by taking a stroll outside, he figures that it's not a place for children to visit, but as he leaves the girls outside the town, he isn't concerned for their safety. Soon after, he comes across a shady geezer trying to sell him a sword for 10 gold coins, but since he's aware that it's a ripoff, Mars declines the offer and walks away. He then visits a guild, wanting to take on a quest and asking if there's an inn around. The receptionist lets Mars know that there aren't any quests and the inn he's looking for is just across the street. After leaving the guild, Mars quickly realizes that he's been followed, and before long, he comes face to face with that old man from before. He tries selling him the sword again, but when Mars tells him that he's not looking to buy it, the old man yells at someone not to let this chance go to waste. Suddenly, two giant men appear right behind Mars, trying to grab him, but just in time, he slips away and kicks the old fart in the face. Impressed by his moves, those men praise him and decide to catch Mars before the auction starts. Confused by this auction talk, Mars makes up his mind to get back to ClariS quickly, but to his shock, Mars gets asked to surrender quietly since those two girls are already in their custody. Upon hearing this, Mars is left with no choice but to surrender himself and agrees to comply. Shortly after, one of the men covers his face and takes him to someone named Hido, who praises them for a job well done. For now, Hido orders them to take Mars to the premium goods room, and once inside, he is reunited with the girls again. Concerned, Mars asks if they are all right, to which ClariS agrees, telling him that they haven't done anything since they are premium goods. Moreover, she apologizes for getting caught, but Mars doesn't seem to mind at all. But on the other hand, Misha is pretty scared, and Mars reassures her that everything will be okay, adding the fact that he got caught on purpose to save the two of them. He then promises to save Misha and suggests meeting her mother together afterward, which helps calm Misha down. However, their conversation gets interrupted when those men barge into the room, telling them to get out. They are then taken inside a room where many other people are present. After taking a look around, Mars stops their weapons and decides to wait for the right moment to snatch them. In the meantime, Hido welcomes everyone to the auction, letting them know that they have the finest items in his trading company's history. To start things off, he showcases Dames, who is up for an offer for only 1 gold coin. But as expected, none of the attendees seems to be interested in that loser, and in order to gain their trust, Hido decides to unveil their highlight items, which turns out to be the 3 of them. Mars is priced at 50 gold, ClariS at 100, while Misha's price starts at 150 gold coins. As soon as the bidding starts, everyone begins raising their hands, offering whatever they can afford. For all 3 of them together, Hido raises the price to 1,000 gold coins, and seeing this atmosphere right before her eyes, Misha begins to panic. One of the disgusting freaks seems to like this behavior and offers to buy the 3 of them for 10,000 gold coins. Since no one else could match the price, the 3 of them were sold to that man. But before he even gets the chance to celebrate, the merchant from before barges in with some mercenaries, confronting Hido for stealing the elf girl from him. Both the merchant and Hido order their men to crush each other, making Mars realize that this is the chance he was looking for. Later on, the fight between the mercenaries begins, and while most of them prioritize physical combat, some of the mages rely on magical spells. Mars, still present on the stage, watches as the fight goes on and realizes how big a commotion it's causing. Both the merchant and Hido are focused on each other while the buyers are running for their lives. Seeing that no one is paying attention to them, Mars figures that this is their chance and breaks his handcuffs. Simultaneously, one of the mercenaries arrives to grab the premium goods, but before he even gets the opportunity to do something, Mars knocks him out using his wind magic. Suddenly, his eyes start to hurt, but when ClariS asks if something's wrong, Mars dismisses it and decides to untie the girls as well. Just then, Hido notices that they are trying to escape and asks his men to catch them. Upon hearing this, one of his men makes up his mind to get serious, and with a single overwhelming strike, he finishes off his opponent. The other tough guy also defeats his opponent, and so does the third member and that geezer. With every mercenary hired by the merchant down, he has no choice but to leave the rest to his last man standing. That humongous guy is told to incapacitate the enemies and given a bag full of coins as a payment. With that, he asks Hido's men to leave, saying that he won't show any mercy if they decide to stay. However, Hido's group doesn't plan on backing down, and to start things off, the two meatheads charge him while the mage in the back prepares his spell. The big guy counters them by throwing the bag full of coins at the mage. Both Hido's men get distracted by this and get reminded by the big guy to keep their eyes on him. Panicked, one of them decides to defend, telling the other to attack. However, their strategy fails miserably in the face of the opponent's overwhelming strength, and both of them are sent flying by a single strike. Seeing that their whole party was taken out in an instant, the old man starts to freak out, but before he even gets the chance to fight, the big guy crushes him under his sword, knocking him out cold. Now that he is done with the mercenaries, the big guy decides to take the girl and leave. For that, he jumps on the stage and appears right in front of Mars, asking why a young boy like him joined up with guys like them. Furthermore, he advises him to leave before it's too late, but when Mars tries to tell him that he's mistaken, the big guy yells at him, saying that it's his final warning. Mars's eyes start to hurt again, and eventually the big guy runs out of patience and tries slapping him away. But shockingly, Mars effortlessly dodges it and realizes that he is now able to see the future. Thanks to that, he dodges the second strike as well, shocking the big guy as he believes something like that should be impossible. Out of curiosity, the big guy asks Mars about who he is, and Mars agrees to tell him if he backs off. However, it's a bit too late since Mars has already piqued his interest, and now he doesn't plan on letting him go. In an instant, he dashes up to Mars and swings his sword, which Mars luckily manages to dodge. But seeing that the second strike will be impossible for him to dodge, Mars tries blocking the strike and barely does so. As their battle continues, the big guy starts to get impressed by his talent and advises Mars to run away, as his talent is too precious to be wasted. Mars argues by questioning the reason someone so strong is doing this kind of thing, wondering if he's proud of tricking and abducting a helpless elven girl. Suddenly, the two of them notice Hido getting close to the girls, and they both shoot wind magic spells towards Hido to protect them. After that, the big guy realizes that he was misunderstood and tells Mars that he is not his enemy, saying that his real client is actually Misha's mother, named Sasha. Furthermore, he asks for Mars's name, wondering what kind of skill he was using before. Seeing the two of them getting friendly with each other starts making the merchant anxious, and he hesitantly asks the big guy to bring the elf to him. Out of nowhere, the merchant gets hit by 2 arrows on the back, and as soon as he falls to his knees, 2 more arrows strike his calves to keep him from running away. After him, Hido gets targeted by the same person, and lastly, they fire an arrow towards Mars as well, which the big guy deflects, letting Sasha know that the boy isn't their enemy. He then advises Mars to go to the Lister National Academy, which is the school for the strongest people in the world, and tell them that he came with a recommendation from Silas. Once he leaves, Sasha jumps down and begins walking towards Mars with an intimidating look on her face. But as soon as she sees Misha running towards her, all the anger leaves her body like self-respect leaves a hotel room late at night. Both of them run towards each other, hugging as tightly as possible with tears in their eyes. However, Misha starts getting suffocated, buried in her Grand Canyons, but Sasha pays no notice to that and begins swinging her daughter around. Simultaneously, Mars also starts feeling a bit lightheaded and gets caught by ClariS, who thanks him for all his hard work. Misha then lets Sasha know that Mars and ClariS are the people who saved her, and after talking about everything that happened, the four of them leave to stay at the inn where Sasha was lodging. There, she makes roasted chicken for dinner, telling them to eat as much as they like. During dinner, Mars asks Sasha about the city, and she lets him know that the city they are in was created by criminals gathering together, which is why it's dangerous for people his age. The following day, she hands him some gold coins as a reward, saying that it's not enough because she spent most of her money searching for Misha. Moreover, Sasha mentions that she is truly grateful and asks to let her thank them properly next time. But Mars reassures her that this is more than enough, adding that they were happy to meet Misha as well. With that, the two of them say goodbye to the mother-daughter duo and leave the town. Before long, they reach the next city, and while booking an inn, Mars asks for 2 rooms. But to his shock, ClariS lets him know that 1 room would be okay as well, since they can have separate beds. Once the room is booked, both of them sit on the beds awkwardly. In order to break the silence, Mars offers ClariS to take the bath first, but she refuses, suggesting that he take it first. When Mars argues by saying that he's a gentleman who lets ladies go first, ClariS replies by saying that people who call themselves gentlemen are pretty suspicious. After laughing at each other's jokes for a while, ClariS ends up taking the bath first and can't believe the fact that she ended up sharing a room with Mars. But to her defense, she was scared of getting kidnapped again and figured it'd be safer to be together than alone. Although she does hope to get a little closer to him than they are now. On the other hand, Mars notices the crystal glowing, which means his family must be nearby. Without wasting a second, he steps out, telling ClariS that his family is close by, leaving her confused. After running around the streets for a while, he finally notices Zeke and Ike searching for him. The 3 of them run towards each other and finally reunite after a long time. Later on, ClariS meets Mars's family, and everyone introduces themselves to each other. As they all enjoy eating dinner, Mars tells his family everything, including fighting the snake, Misha, Sasha, and the auction. Upon hearing that, both Ike and Zeke praise him for doing a good job. The following morning, they are set to leave for home, and with Zeke driving the carriage, they finally leave the city. After traveling for a few days, their carriage reaches home, where they find Maria standing at the door of their house, waiting for them. She tears up after looking at Mars, and the 2 of them embrace each other. His little sister also comes up to Mars and gives him a hug, welcoming him home. When they are done with the greetings, Maria recognizes ClariS and introduces herself as Mars's mother. Later that night, they all sat on the dinner table together and welcomed Mars and ClariS back with cheers. Zeke then suggests helping ClariS feel at home and asks Maria for her assistance. She agrees, telling ClariS that she might feel out of place at first and not to hesitate to ask for anything. Lastly, Rena requests ClariS to take care of her, to which she agrees. From then on, Rena stuck to ClariS like glue, and while Ike focused on his studies, Mars helped Zeke with his work. 1 month later, they received a request from Margrave Carmel to slay the monsters in the Almeria dungeon. However, Zeke told the 3 of them to take the job in his stead, and with that being said, they arrived at the dungeon where an adventurer complimented their gear, asking where they stole it from. Annoyed, Mars replies by saying that they got this equipment themselves from the dungeon chest, and gets asked by that adventurer to prove it by showcasing his skills. This prompts Mars to fight a duel with that guy, and in a single strike, he knocks that adventurer out cold. Subsequently, the guildmaster named Ralph appears, and Ike lets him know that they have come on behalf of Zeke for the monster culling in the dungeon. After informing the guildmaster, they arrive at the dungeon, which is filled with the silver birds, having a threat level of D. Without wasting any time, the 3 of them start doing their part of the job, and once they are finished, they are left with a mountain of magic stones. Knowing that they can't carry all of these back, Ike suggests going back and discussing it with their father. Upon hearing this problem, Zeke suggests buying some slaves, and for that, they pay a visit to the slave market, where the salesman advises Zeke to buy some beastmen if he wants someone with strength and agility. He then takes them to the beastmen section of the market and informs Zeke that beastmen never acknowledge someone weaker than themselves as their master. While roaming around, they end up noticing a room much larger than the rest. Curious, Mars takes a peek inside and witnesses Duke Sellince, one of the 12 dukes who were representatives of beastmen sitting there. Apparently, he was overthrown in a coup and exiled, due to which he was bought by Carmel. Just like others, Duke Sellince declared that he would not serve anyone weaker than himself. Ultimately, Mars tries using Heaven's Eye to check out his stats, but Duke Sellince notices that and punches the door into pieces. In a state of panic, Mars uses his future skill, Vision, to predict Duke Sellince's next move, only to find out that it's impossible for him to dodge. As a last resort, ClariS uses barrier magic to protect himself from the initial strike, but Duke Sellince doubles down by going for another punch. Knowing that ClariS will be in trouble if he goes down, Mars makes up his mind to block the strike and unknowingly uses lightning magic, forcing Duke Sellince to back off and notice a burn on his hand. After that, Mars questions the reason he suddenly attacked him, to which Duke Sellince replies by saying that he was trying to gauge him, so he decided to give him a quick scare. Realizing that it was rude of him, Mars apologizes for his behavior and after introducing himself, asks for his name. Duke Sellince presents himself as Burns, and this time Mars asks for his permission to appraise him. When the permission is granted, Mars successfully appraises him and finds out that his stats are beyond anything he's ever seen before. Before leaving, Burns asks if they are done and gets told by Mars that his family is looking for a slave. However, Burns reminds him that he doesn't serve under someone weaker than him, and Mars is out of the question too. However, Burns is sure that other beastmen might agree even if he doesn't. Just as he expected, all the other beastmen are amazed by his skills and are offering to let him become their master. With that being said, Mars decides to evaluate everyone and finally chooses a few he likes. Firstly, he chose 3 brothers of the Black Wolf tribe named Mac, Guy, and Orr, respectively. Moreover, he also bought 2 thick baddies named Ray and Misha for obvious reasons. Afterwards, Zeke rents a whole house for everyone, including the slaves, but before getting to any sort of work, he suggests filling up their tummies. After everyone is done eating, Ray asks Zeke if it's okay for them to join him at the dining table, making Guy wonder if that's not allowed. This annoys Ray, who scolds him for lacking manners, telling him to use polite language next time. Zeke then allows the slaves for the time being, letting them know that from tomorrow, it will be up to Ike to decide. With that being said, Zeke lets the slaves know that they will relocate to Yuusho in 3 days, and while the 3 brothers will be managing the dungeon, Ray and Misha are going to be hired as servants. Then they all picked a room to sleep in, and the next morning the 3 brothers got their adventurer cards. Guy then asks Ike about their next step, and he decides to make up his mind after assessing their abilities. For that, they all enter the dungeon, and the brothers are told to fight the rock lizards. Without wasting a second, they all charge those lizards, and while Guy lands a solid punch, Mac relies on his kicks and Orr grapples the lizards. After attacking the lizards and getting counterattacked, Guy finally breaks the lizard's skull with one of his punches. Mac also crushes his lizard using his kicks, and Orr strangles the lizard he was fighting. With wounds all over their bodies, Guy tells Ike that they have defeated them all and asks if he will acknowledge them now. However, Ike straight up refuses, prompting Guy to question the reason behind this decision. To start things off, Ike asks the other 2 to heal them, and once they are all healed, Orr mentions the fact that those who use holy magic grow quickly and asks about their age. But after hearing about how young Mars and ClariS are, they can't help but be shocked. Guy then wonders if ClariS's big balloons are also thanks to holy magic, causing Mac and Orr to beat the living world out of him and apologize for his rude behavior. After that, Ike decides to explain the reason they didn't pass the test and showcases his skills by burning one of the rock dragons, stabbing the other one, and ultimately decapitating the last one without taking any damage. Seeing this, Guy lets him know that they can't use magic and gets told by Ike that they have to think while they fight. According to him, they are using too much stamina in their battles, and since dungeons aren't forgiving enough for injured people to explore, the key to exploration is to conserve stamina. He then asks them to keep this in mind and work together as a team of 3. Moments later, they come across a grizzly bear, and this time, Guy initiates the attack by punching the bear in the face, followed by Orr grabbing it to stop its movements. Ultimately, Mac finishes it off by kicking the bear right in the face. They once again ask Ike for his opinion, and this time he gives them the green light. As they progress further, Ike suggests checking out the second floor before heading back, but as soon as they enter the second floor, they witness a large number of ants scattered everywhere. Since there are far too many of them to handle, Ike decides to head back and report this to the guild. Later that day, Ike and Mars pay Ralph a visit, who introduces Evan, the Marquis of Carmel, to them. Mars then explains that there are numerous ant monsters on the second floor. Ralph freaks out after hearing that and informs them that these ant monsters have an incredible reproductive ability that could devour everything. Moreover, if these ants keep multiplying, the labyrinth might be overrun. After thinking about a solution for a while, Ralph asks for Mars's opinion, and he suggests summoning 3 C-ranked parties from Ilgusia. After that, he wants to persuade the beastmen slaves, including the top adventurers of the town, and have them wait in the last room on the first floor. Lastly, the most important part of his plan is to have Burns' cooperation, and in other words, it'll be an all-out battle. The next day, everyone Mars mentioned gathers in one place, including the Brown Shield Party, Blue Fang, and Red Wing as well. However, everyone from the Beastmen except for Burns agreed to cooperate, and they couldn't even have a conversation with him. Since Mars is someone Burns has acknowledged, he is told to go and have a conversation with him. Mars lets Burns know that he has come to request his accompaniment to the Almeria Labyrinth, but Burns replies by saying that he doesn't care what happens to the town, and if they all get wiped out, he will just leave the place. Hesitantly, Mars mentions that the Margrave of Carmel has agreed to grant any of his wishes if Burns agrees to participate. This piques his interest, and Burns asks Mars to bring him the holy magic user named Flora. Knowing that it's impossible to find someone they don't know that quickly, Mars questions his plans with Flora, to which Burns replies by saying that he wants her to lift Ellie's curse. Apparently, he has heard that holy magic users can lift curses, and if Flora is unable to do so, Burns plans on making her keep trying until she succeeds. Hearing this, Mars swears to remain quiet about being a holy magic user himself. Just when Burns is about to leave, Mars lets him know that if the town disappears before they find Flora, no one will know where he went. This argument results in Burns agreeing to stay outside the labyrinth to defend the town on the condition that Ellie remains safe and within his sight. Once he's done conversing with Burns, Mars pays a visit to the dungeon in order to enhance his physical abilities. There, he uses the Sylph Wind Cloak and tries to recall the feeling from when he sparred with Burns. Doing this allows Mars to use the lightning spell once again, and just as the goblins try attacking him, he electrocutes them all in one go. After the goblins are dealt with, Mars is amazed by the fact that he was able to attack automatically, but on the other hand, this spell consumes too much of his mana. Before long, ClariS appears, asking if he's okay as she saw lightning from afar. All of a sudden, Mars' lightning spell automatically attacks her as well, but to his surprise, she remains completely unharmed. Curious, she wonders what just happened, and Mars explains that this was the same magic that damaged Burns the other day. Furthermore, ClariS mentions that she knows this feeling, and they both simultaneously remember the convenience store from their past world. This means that she has resistance to this spell, which means ClariS can now join Mars in the labyrinth because she gets worried when he goes in there alone. Nevertheless, Mars then opens the treasure chest and finds 2 disguise bracelets, which can help him hide his holy magic stats. After some time, the day of ant extermination operation arrives, and everyone gathers outside the labyrinth, including Burns, who is keeping watch from afar. Meanwhile, Mars and Ike go inside and catch the ants' attention by shooting a few magical spells. They then run to the first floor with ants following them, and after catching up with others, Mars uses the tornado spell to deal with most of them. Simultaneously, the other adventurers present start assisting Mars as well. Soon after, a wall in the room breaks, and a giant ant makes an appearance. Mars uses his appraisal ability to find out that it's a mother ant and warns everyone to be careful. Moreover, he finds out that the tornado ability is not enough to take it down. But luckily, ClariS helps him out by shooting a few arrows at the mother ant, and Ike finishes it off by slashing its head. After fighting them for a while, everyone gets exhausted, which prompts Maria and Zeke to cover the entrance with a combination of ice and earth wall so everyone can take a short break. Mars advises ClariS to rest up, as the fighting will continue for a while, to which she agrees, and while holding each other's hands, they both fall asleep. Later on, Mars wakes up and finds his parents standing in front of him. Maria praises him for doing well at the Department of Riz Studies, and Zeke also gets a bit jealous after being outdone by his own son. Mars lets out a nervous laugh and asks if everything is all right with the wall. Zeke lets him know that the walls will break in about 30 minutes, which is why he came to wake Mars up, but got distracted by such a heartwarming scene. Maria also adds that if ClariS doesn't wake up, she will need a kiss from her prince, and with that being said, they both leave. Turns out ClariS was awake this whole time and has turned beet red after hearing all that. Apparently, she knew it was Maria standing in front of her, but ClariS lost her chance to open her eyes. Nevertheless, the two of them then meet up with the rest of the team, and by then, the walls have already been broken by the furious ants. Zeke figures that they are melting the wall using acids from their mouths and advises Mars not to use tornado as it will spread the acid everywhere. To avoid that, Mars uses a wind cutter, and all the mages present also attack using long-range spells. Ultimately, the wall breaks, and a queen ant makes its presence known. Mars suggests they all retreat, but decides to stay back, and ClariS offers to assist him. Once everyone leaves, Mars uses the tornado spell to take care of the smaller ants and gets counterattacked by the queen ant, who throws an acidic breath attack. After that, Mars activates his lightning spell, and after gathering it at one spot, he fires it towards the queen ant. This manages to paralyze the queen ant, allowing Mars to finish it off. However, since more ants are present on the second floor, Mars suggests leaving for now and gets congratulated by his family for defeating the queen ant. Afterward, they all take a quick break inside the nearby inn, but their chilling session is cut short when Zeke appears, saying that the ants have broken through the labyrinth door. Once they reach the labyrinth, Mars witnesses Burns fighting the queen ant on his own and ultimately defeats it single-handedly. Mars decides to cover him and slashes all the smaller ants down using his sword. Surprised by his sword technique, Burns questions if he wasn't supposed to be a mage and gets told by Mars that he can handle a sword a little bit. Upon hearing that, Burns laughs at Mars for underwhelming his sword skills this much, saying that his swordsmanship is better than anyone else present. Suddenly, another queen ant appears, and while Mars takes on the smaller ones, Burns solos the queen ant. Meanwhile, everyone else gives it their all as well, and after finishing off the queen ant, Burns advises the beastmen to support the adventurers. Noticing the wounds on Burns' body, Mars asks for Zeke's permission and ends up using his holy powers to heal him. This gives Burns the hope that his pet lion, Ellie, can finally be cured. Meanwhile, the adventurers start getting overwhelmed as well, making it ClariS's job to heal each and every one of them. Before they can even catch a break, a new kind of ant appears, which turns out to be a named monster named Arlen. Seeing this, Burns tells Mars to support the adventurers while he transforms into his ultimate form, called the Beast King. This form allows him to defeat two queen ants at the same time, and once he's done with them, Burns charges Arlen on his own. Do you think Burns is capable of defeating a named monster? Comment Mars if you'd like part 2 of this series. As usual, thank you for tuning in and we'll catch you in the next one.